Welcome to Clit Night, everyone. So you guys know the drill. Grab your paperback books or upload your ebooks so you guys can follow along with me as I read chapter 6, Mixed Liquor. If you guys don't have a book, you guys can get the information where to purchase the book in the comments and in the details below and in my bio. So let's dive in. I was always in Tally's dorm, but not exactly for him. I had friends that lived there, and okay, I was plotting to run into him. When Tally hit me up, I was always respond in my feelings, and he would stop texting. I was never the double texter, but I'm sure I double text him a time or two. One night, Jade and I took a trip to the liquor store with Corey, D, and Emmanuel, a new guy. This ride was crazy. None of us was 21, but D took us through the drive-thru in his decked out 2016 dark gray Hummer. Fancy, right? My mom always said she wanted a Hummer, and I got to ride in one. Christy better play her cards right. D was riding nice, I thought to myself. He pulled up to the drive-thru to order. I felt like I was presidential pulling up. His windows were tinted so dark that the white man at the window only saw his reflection. "What y'all sipping on tonight?" D asked as he rolled the window down. Jade and I split a fifth of peach Ciroc. D got a bottle of E&J, and I'm almost certain Corey was drinking lean. I was too scared to try the lean, but Jade was down for whatever. Okay, I lied. I did take a sip, but just enough to taste. On our short trip back to campus, Jade was sipping on Corey's drink, and I was staring at my phone, hoping Tally had hit me back up. He didn't. Somehow the entire car knew what went down in the room with D and Tally, and insisted that we talked about it. I had to take me a shot. D didn't participate in the conversation because he was embarrassed. He lowered his standards and had sex with Christy. She wasn't the prettiest, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I felt like all she needed was a makeover, just so it would spark more confidence. I could tell that she was insecure and doing things for attention. Her personality was a bit much, and she liked to get attention. She was the type of girl to get loud and extra if a guy she's attracted to was near her. Corey, Emmanuel, and Jay clowned D, asking how could he fuck her. Then they asked if he would do it again. We pulled back to campus and headed towards their dorm. We parked in a student parking lot in front of Ivan Hall, with music blaring through D's stereo. Jade's petty ass texted Christy while we were on the way back and asked her to meet us at Ivan. So, guess who was waiting when we pulled up? Everybody, including myself, bursted out in laughter. We started drinking and continued to listen to music. I got out the car and started twerking. I was 2 shots in with the dabbling. D got out the car and got behind me. Christy flared her eyes at me, and I kept dancing. What was I supposed to do? Stop having fun? People started to pull up and join us. Before we knew it, it turned into a parking lot kickback. It was a vibe. The gathering moved from the parking lot to the stairs in front of Ivan. Jade took 2 or 3 shots of the Ciroc the rest of the night. She was drinking Corey's drink. I finished the bottle and started running my mouth. I walked over to almost every person outside and asked if they knew where Tally was. I almost walked to the girls in his dorm who he'd been fucking almost every night until D intersected. Fucking bro code. Her name is Zara. She's from Cali, B. Simone thick, and I hated her. She was fucking my man. She frowned her face up at me and started to chuckle with her friend standing next to her. That would have made me feel like shit if I wasn't drunk. Zara gave Emmanuel and Dee a hug, then walked in. Tali's football friend Josh walked out, passing them. I don't know what she said to him, but I heard him say, "I really hate that bitch." Me too, I slurred. He was drunk as fuck, sipping on a drink he mixed in the Gatorade bottle. Josh was a typical light-skinned cutie. Most girls I know would have considered him to be more attractive than Tali, but with Tali, it was more than his looks. He had a swag to him, that hood twang. I walked up to him and asked him for a sip of his drink. I took about 5 sips, and no, I did not know where his mouth had been. 24-year-old me would have never. Okay. I was beyond drunk, and I had mixed dark and light. I kept drinking to the point the liquor was no longer nasty. I don't know what triggered this to happen, but I ended up rolling around in the grass talking about, "I want Tali. I want to fuck Tali. Tali, come out here. I want Tali." Everyone outside was silent, then burst out into laughter. Tali came out, and I remember him walking away like he was embarrassed by me. Dee got me up, and I threw up in the grass, getting some of it on my sock. I pulled it off and threw it. Jade was just as drunk as I was. She kept saying, "Who laughed at my bitch? Who trying to get hit? Bring Tali here. I want to whoop his ass." Dee and Emmanuel carried Jade and me back to Olivia Davidson, an all-girl dorm where Jade stayed. They got us to the elevator. Emmanuel left, but Dee stayed to make sure we got to her room. The elevator doors opened, and the 2 girls with the White Castle bags in their hands stared at us. They looked like they had just got caught fucking or something. One of the girls eventually smiled, and we walked in. Dee walked us to Jade's door, grabbed her key, and swiped us in. I opened up the door and jumped in bed. I opened the door and jumped in the bed I claimed as my own. Jade was never assigned a roommate, so she made the second bed like a guest bed. I got up to grab a plastic bag and hold it next to me just in case I threw up again. I dove back in bed and was sound asleep. I woke up so confused and hungover. Jade quickly got up screaming, "We gotta get to the caf to get breakfast before it closes." It was like she was dreaming about breakfast food. The caf has set hours during the week. Monday through Friday, the caf was open from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for lunch, and 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. for dinner. During the weekend, they were open from 8 a.m. to noon for breakfast and 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. for dinner. The 3 restaurants on campus hours weren't any better. I told Jade I would meet her in the caf after I showered. You know, back in my bougie dorms. I stayed in Patty Hall where the scholars and upperclassmen lived. It was easy for me to get in there despite all the people who said I wouldn't get in. I just applied for it, and since I went to a private school, my GPA was bomb. Well, bomb enough to get me to meet the dorm requirements. A few days had passed and the weekend approached. It was time for me to face Paul. I still couldn't get over Tali, and there was no longer a spark with Paul. Jay's brother came up to the school to take Jay home for the weekend, and I hitched a ride. My mom already threatened me about adding unnecessarily mileage to my car, so this was the best option. Paul met me at Jade's house and took me home. I was happy to see him until he opened his mouth. He always spoke about bullshit. Like, nigga, where is your ambition? He wanted to tell me about how he hit a lick. He noticed I was uninterested in his illegal shit, and then he shifted the conversation towards me. He told me how proud of me he was and how he bragged on me to his friends and family. He promised me that he was working towards his GED so he can go to college. I smiled and grabbed his hand, locking his fingers in between mine. We pulled up to my mom's. He parked in the dark cul-de-sac and kissed me. Paul kisses were always soft and sweet. He continued to kiss, and we ended up in the back seat. He pulled my dress up and slid his mans inside. I wasn't wearing any panties, so he didn't have to pull them to the side. The sex felt good because I felt the passion, our love. Let my mom tell it, our infatuation for each other. He fucked me for a long 5 minutes. He knew from our past experience together, I did not fuck with the quickies. The shit was whack. He immediately went down to apologize to the lady with his tongue, trying to replace his dick. The main reason I disliked head was that it was too freaking sloppy. My box was already wet, but this motherfucker made a puddle, and it was with his slob. I chalked it up as a loss and ended our night. The weekend passed, and my vagina felt a little off. I was discharging, and I had a slight smell. To be honest, I was feeling a little off since I had smashed Tolly, but I thought it was my guilt. I had always been the paranoid type, maybe because with Paul, I constantly kept getting bacterial vaginosis, which is BV, which I blamed on the condoms we barely used, but I'm now sure it was because he was being friendly with his dick. Bacterial vaginosis is a condition caused by the change of amount of bacteria in your vagina. African American women are twice as likely to get bacterial vaginosis than a white woman. He was my first love. He was my first. I loved him, okay? We went to the city's local clinic. I went to the city's local clinic. A fifth year told me on the first day of classes that I shouldn't go to the school's clinic because if you had something, the doctor reported it, and something about being a statistic in our school's database. I'll pass. If I'm going to be a statistic, I'd rather be one with the city. You know, more people to compare. I went and she ran a culture. Shout out to this clinic because I didn't have to pay a dime. However, I did have to wait a good hour before being seen. I waited another hour for the doctor to come in and give me a culture exam. My legs were propped up and spread wide. I got over being embarrassed by my overmoist pussy. So I took a deep breath and she stuck in the surgical dildo up my vagina. It was so cold. She cranked it open and it was uncomfortable. I felt like I instantly had cramps. She turned on the light, and once she looked under the scope, she was positive that I had chlamydia. Chlamydia is a sexually transmitted disease. It can affect both men and women, but is most common in young women, according to Medline Plus. I remember her words exactly when she informed me of the diagnosis. Erica, you are a beautiful young lady. I'm telling you, now more men than a little bit come in here daily for these and other diseases. You have to be more careful and use preventative methods. I was devastated. I didn't know who to blame, so I attacked who I was comfortable with, Paul. I found out he cheated on me again with his fat ass ex, Tiff. She was a FUBU. Fat, ugly, black, and uncomfortable. Thank you, Tyler Perry. He went on and confessed, claiming he wore protection. Later on, he told me they fucked in the shower. Stupid motherfucker. Do I look dumb? I'm young, and sometimes I try to act like I don't see the facts, but it was very clear to me. I'm like, ain't no way you wore a fucking condom in the shower. Boy, bye. And that's the end of Paul's chapter. I honestly wasn't sure if it was Paul or Tolly who gave me this STD. I blame Paul, but as I said, lady felt weird as soon as Tolly put his dick inside. I wrote it off, and I could never mention it to Tolly. Why, you ask? I didn't want him to judge me or try to flip it on me like I gave it to him. Men do that. Make you feel guilty for some shit you didn't even do. Sometimes Some time had passed and I still hung out at Ivanhoe. I fell back from Tally. Well, I did until he seduced me at the alpha party at Emma's. Christy, Jade, and I got all dressed in our booty shorts, heels, and gym shoes. Well, Christy, Jade, and I got dressed in our booty shorts and heels. Well, gym shoes in Jade's case. Her tall ass was just as tall as me in my 6-inch heels. Emma's didn't have the 2 for $5 special, but we still got shots at the door. The Greeks were scrolling through the party. Everybody was there, having a good time. I saw James in the crowd. He looked so happy to see me. James came through the crowd and gave me a long, tight hug. I heard Christy smack her lips, but I ignored it. He brought a round of shots and gave them to us. "Turn up," he said, then took a shot. He gave me a peck on my cheek. I walked through the party, stopping at every other song to twerk. Finally, we made it in front near the DJ. The DJ started his 8 minutes of twerk mix with Do My Dance by Tyga and 2 Chainz, and I had to fuck it up. I slightly bent over, then put my hands on my knees and started to shake and pop my ass. The DJ kept playing hit after hit, and I heard what seemed to be people from Chicago's anthem, Bounce and Break Your Back. Next to me stood Zara, dancing her ass off, better than the Chicago girls. She was swinging her arms and popping her ass simultaneously. Her ass was just a bouncing. I learned to dance by watching her, and I added my own little twang to it by getting down lower and staying there longer. The girls were hyping me up. The song ended and I headed towards the bar for another drink. The DJ turned on my freshman anthem, Do It by Mikey O. Montana. Tally walked towards me, beefing it up, and turned me around. "You rubbing through my head while I'm in between your legs," Tally screamed, repeating the lyrics from the song, then bent me over. I whined my hips against his groin. I wanted to remind him what he was missing out on. I just had to wait for the right moment. The next night, I was chilling with my friends, and we had a recap of the party. The next night, I was chilling with my friends, and we had a recap of the party, and I creamed my panties from the thought of fucking him again. This time, I will be single. Not that it mattered. I texted him, "I want to fuck." He responded, "Where you at?" "In your dorm, in D room," I replied. See, D and I became great friends, and he low-key was a spy, even though I know he was feeding me some bullshit. He texts back, "Come out in the hall." There he was, along with 5 other guys chilling in the crazy house-looking hallway. I walked over towards him, and he opened his door, let me in, and closed it behind him. He put on some Boosie and turned it all the way up. I felt the bass in my feet through the floor. He walked over to me. I stood there, stared at him. I leaned in for a kiss, but he turned me around. What the fuck? Something wrong with my lips? He bent me over, pulled my sweats down, and gave me 5 solid pumps before he stopped. I assumed he came. He walked over to his phone and turned on "I Was Getting Some Head" by Shauna and raised the volume. I turned around to see if we were finished, and he said, "Give me some head." Now, what you ain't gonna do is demand head like that. I don't suck everybody dick, and it's a turn off when I'm asked to do it by somebody who ain't my man. I laughed at him to disguise my embarrassment and said, "You first." "Nah," Tally responded. My heart raced as I pulled up my sweatpants. I felt like dog shit, but that wasn't even the icing on the cake. He pulled up his boxers and left the baseball shorts at his ankles and opened the door, still with the same song blasting. I walked out and had to face the same 5 boys in the hall. They were the red shirt gang, also known as the bench warmers on our football team. D and J were down the hall pretending that they didn't see what just happened. I was so embarrassed. That was the nail in the coffin. I was done. And to top it with a cherry, I later found out that I had gotten HPV. At this time, I was unfamiliar with the facts of the human papilloma virus, HPV. I had already gotten the Gardasil shots in high school. I thought it was to prevent it. Those 3 shots hurt like hell. HPV is a common sexually transmitted infection. 79 million Americans are affected with HPV, and most of them are in their late teens, early 20s, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The infection doesn't always show symptoms, however, it can still be passed through sex. I didn't know this information, so I didn't take it that serious. I just knew it was something that could possibly go away in time, and it could lead to me not having children. I was conflicted. I wasn't sure if the doctor was wrong because I had gotten the shots, or if it was something that really could change my life. Tolly was now dead to me, and I vowed that I would never be disrespected like that again, and I would never fuck him ever again. I still say this to this day. I fucked him 1.5 times because them 5 shitty pumps count as a half since I didn't get my nut. Mixed liquor. What do you guys think? We learned a few things here. We learned about HPV, if you didn't know. It's some more information. I didn't read the entire blurb I put in there, but it has more information about HPV and what the Gardasil shot is. Also, we talked about bacterial vaginosis and its effect on African American women. It's some more information on here and the websites you guys can go to look it up and get some more research. Also, we talked about chlamydia, which is another sexually transmitted disease, often spread in the younger generation. A lot of it's going around in college. So make sure you wear condoms, you guys. Safe sex is the best sex. It may feel like you don't want to wear the latex, but baby, you should. When it comes to the end result, you should, unless you're with somebody that you fully trust. And sometimes even then, stuff happens. But be careful and just at least know your partner. Have those conversations. If you don't want to wear condoms, be an adult and say, okay, well, we both need to get checked. Be like Mary Jane and pull out the box and at-home test. Okay, we're checking each other, or share results after you go to the doctor. But you guys have to be open to the conversation. Be safe. But that was mixed liquor. Something Erica learned: don't mix liquor, honey, because baby, you'll be rolling around in the grass, embarrassing your ass. I know it's corny. But thank you for joining me for Clit Night. Talk to me, write in the comments. I'll respond. And next week, we will be reading Chapter 7 and Chapter 8, which is Real Friends and Meeting in His Bedroom. Y'all, it is getting juicier and juicier, so don't miss next week. See you next Friday for Clit Night. Later.